the G.
Hello, Nick family. I'm Stephanie from the Queen's Court,
And I'm Tony Crow from Knicks and Bruises.
and this is the crossover.
Yes.
I'll be your host today. Tony will be manning the chat, but you know how we do. You probably don't even know who's hosting. How you doing? How's it been since we last met up here?
I'm good. I'm good. I caught the tail end of the MBK report card show and got a little got my feet wet and I'm ready to go.
Yeah. The same here. This is, in one sense, as a content creator, I'm happy the season is over because it's such a grind. But then this is like grind part two. Like we got the draft, we got free agency, um, whoever the Knicks may sign, summer league. So it's just a different type of grind.
You know
But
what though? I think in some ways I think this part is a little more fun.
oh, it
You know
is.
what I mean? It's no structure in the sense that there's no games that we gotta critique. So
Right,
now it's really about our inner thoughts, our inner feelings, our
right,
inner perspectives, and
right.
anticipation and things like that. So it's very exciting time.
All right, okay. Um, the link is in the chat for those who want to pop on a little bit later. I don't think we did this last week because the Knicks season ended Sunday.
Hmm.
Oh, we did. We may have.
No,
We
no,
did. I
we kind of doing we were on last week, but the
right.
topics
Hmm.
today are kind of based off of Queen's Court,
Yeah.
a
Continue. Yeah.
continuation.
All right. Yeah. So what we like to call cutting room floor. There was a lot of topics from the Queen's Court that we just didn't get an opportunity to get to. So I definitely want to do that. Yeah, I definitely want to do that. So if you didn't, well, let me just say this: if you haven't checked it out on MBK, we went for like over 2 hours doing our grades on the Knicks. I think we got through Randall, RJ, um, IQ, OB. I think that was about all we. That's about all we got to. So if you didn't get an opportunity, check that out on the Nothing But Nick's channel, and then there'll be a part three tomorrow where we'll go
Absolutely.
over Fournier and Burks, the rookies, Grimes, and then the injured players as well. I don't know how much we have to say about that, but in continuation from the crossover last week, I wanted to talk about Fournier. I wanted to talk about Burks, and I wanted to talk about Sims. So let's talk about Fournier in this sense. I'm interested in what were your thoughts when we signed him? What did you think he would bring to the team? And do you think he's done that?
I love the way you worded the question. First off, I wish we had the footage to bring it back, but I believe I said I was intrigued by his signing.
Mhm,
I thought he was a not necessarily a good defender, but a scrappy defender.
mhm,
Um, but I think as far as the job he was brought here to do, he 100% fulfilled that role, even with all his flaws, even with him seemingly trying to find himself early in the season, or find his role. I don't know if he actually solidified or found his role yet, even still, but he was able to be productive in the midst of figuring things out. But the fact that he broke that shooting record, the 3 point single season 3 point record, I think that in itself is like proof that he came in, did the job that they brought him here to do. and
Hmm.
hopefully it can only get better from here.
Right.
Move forward and be better.
Would you like to see him return, or in terms of how you envision the team next season, he wouldn't be a part of it?
I don't want to hold like if I'm looking at him individually and what he's done, what he's capable of. I wouldn't be mad if he returned. Right. When I look at the entire season, the team as a whole, I honestly, I'm not gonna say I'm pushing for him to not be here, but I
Hmm.
wouldn't be mad if he's used in some type of a deal to better the team or solidify the direction. It, depending on what deal he's moved in. So I think I'm good with him either way. I'm not advocating for him to be moved, nor do I think he is a missing piece or irreplaceable piece, I should say.
Yeah, excuse my dog in the background. I forgot to take care of business before we got on. Um yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. When we signed Fournier, I felt the same. He was going to give us the offense we needed, we was looking for, and that, defensively, he wasn't a slouch. I thought he was an average defender, and that we would be able to cover him up in our team schemes. And like you, I saw him as a scrappy defender, knew where he was supposed to be, and that his poor defense was more about his physical ability than about his willingness to play defense. Um, I'm okay with Fournier, and I've been on record saying this. And I think we could have got more out of him. I think that he can score on all three levels. He can drive. We've seen that. He can hit the mid range. He can hit, the 3-point shot. But in this particular offense, because we got ball dominant players in Randall and RJ, he was relegated to being mostly a um, a 3-point shooter. So, and not only did he have to find his role, right? He shot almost 8 3-pointers a game. That's not his game. Not only did he find his role, he broke the record while doing so. And I think another thing about Fournier is I like his toughness. I like his toughness. Having watched him, on the in the French national team, he's not a pushover. He's not somebody that you're going to be able to get into his head or anything like that. So I'm with you. If they bring him back, I'm okay with it. But if they put him in a trade for someone better for the team, then I'm okay as well. And I feel like that for all of our players.
Hmm.
you know, Whoever you trade, just make sure I want to be able to say we're a better team because of that trade. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. We got Mark S in the chat. Shout out to the chat. Fournier can stay if he plays with a defensive point. You can't have him and a player like Kemba in the backcourt. I couldn't agree more. I
mhm,
think that was one of the biggest mistakes in the front office, getting rid of two defensive players and replacing them with two strictly offensive players.
right.
And I was the one, saying, off getting charges as defense. That was my defense of Kemba not being a good defender. But there's only so many times you could draw a charge in a game. So I agree.
We're not taking calls, but we'll drop the link.
Yep.
So those who want to hop on for a minute or two to give their opinion, um, would be fine until we figure out the whole phone call thing. Um, how else do you think we could have used him?
To be honest,
Mhm.
I felt like using him off the bench would have been a better solution. Even early in the season, before IQ struggled, and before he turned it around. Obviously, I wanted IQ to start at the point and Burks to play the two, um, and Fournier to kind of be that offensive guy off the bench, but not just offense. Because I was aware of his abilities, I thought he was best being that number one guy off the bench. You know what I mean? Where he could just play his role to his full potential, play make, score, shoot. He can handle the ball a little bit. So I felt like it was always he was being restricted a little bit in what he could do playing with the starters, especially as a new addition where you don't want to overstep, you don't want to kind of push your role, or you kind of figuring that thing out. Where if he came off the bench, I think he's just free to beat him. You know what I mean? Flaws and all.
Yeah, because I could see a lineup with Rose, IQ, and Fournier. But that means Burks. What does that mean? Burks goes into the start. I mean, this is where the glut is. I guess Burks would have went into the starting lineup on the wing, and we wouldn't have seen Grimes. That's if everybody was healthy.
Yeah,
If everybody was healthy. I mean, I think going into next season, there's a lot that needs to be flushed out as far as the rotation, and moving on, clearing up some space. But anyway, we got our first person who's going to come on for a minute or two and give us his opinion. And
Hello.
there we go. Hello there. How are you?
I'm doing
appreciate
okay.
you joining us. What's your name? Where you from?
Um, my real name's Seth. I go by Mets212 on YouTube. I'm from Concord, North Carolina.
Okay. What's on your mind?
Basically, what, in my opinion, and I've done this on Guillermo's stream, has killed the Knicks this year was, in my opinion, a glut of things. You had Randall being nothing more than a ball hog who regressed back to what he was when he started like in the 2014-15 season. You had Thibodeau being a tactical tunnel vision tin man who just didn't want to adapt or play the kids more often than not. You had him put players like Fournier in ridiculous spots. More or less, Fournier to me is typecast as a catch and shooter. He's not a playmaker. And when you try to force him to that playmaker role, well, given how small his hands are, that ends up screwing the pooch. True or false?
I would say that Quickly's improved tremendously at playmaking.
I said
And,
Fournier, not quickly.
I'm sorry. I thought you said Quickly. So Fournier as a
But I
playmaker.
didn't see Fournier in a playmaking role though.
I mean, there was one instance like in that game against Brooklyn, the last game against the game before the last one against the Nets, where he tried to throw an alley oop to Mitch to try to get the lead with about 13 or so seconds left.
But that was coming out of the timeout. That was the play that they drew up. But for the most part, Fournier is not in a playmaking role, and for the most part, they have reduced him to more of a catch and shoot type
Yes.
of guy. I think he has more game than that. Though at times I have seen him drive to the rim, and things of that sort. But he has much more game. And I think because he's playing with these ball dominant guards, it's just hard players. It's just hard for him to be all of
Not
that.
to not to mention you have wingmen who are ball dominant, a coach who is basically borderline rigid and inadaptable. I mean, I've heard people on the Knicks fans TV when they call Thibodeau a template coach. So committed to his morals, his stature, that it ends up making a sacrifice out of the New York Knicks instead of making sacrifices for the New York Knicks.
Hmm.
Yeah. Listen, we knew who Tibbs was when we hired him. The front office knew who he was when they hired him.
I'm just
Right?
saying,
This is who he is. So if we're gonna expect him, don't expect him to be any different next year. And if the Knicks have a problem with it, they need to move on from him.
well, I'm just
I don't see much change.
I'm just saying. I mean, you saw how RJ basically got worn down throughout the last few quarter or so of the season to the point that he bruised his knee. I mean, Thibodeau basically
Hey,
broke.
No, no,
hey,
no. We're
hey,
not gonna do that.
hey, and
Play is
and
play.
I'm just
and
saying
Play
that
is
Thibodeau has
hey,
play.
a bit of a
hey,
nasty habit of
think
breaking
about
down star players. Look what he did
think
to
about
Noah and Rhodes when all three of them were in Chicago.
RJ didn't turn it around until January.
I
So
know,
so
but
so if anything, if he wasn't playing these minutes, who's to say he would have turned it around and became who he was by the end of the season?
I get
You know
that.
you
But
know what I mean?
and then there was the whole Randall thing where Randall's basically getting making a victim out of himself. I mean, this didn't work out for Javi Baez, Kevin Pillar, Jonathan VR, and a good chunk of the Met players in baseball last season when they thumbs down the fans. It didn't endear Randall to the Knicks fans. You know, Knicks fans are some of the most vicious, overly loyal, elephant-minded in the sense of they never forget, and in some cases, they will not forgive when they get scathed by their own players.
No doubt about it.
That's a fact.
Appreciate you for dropping by. Definitely come back again. Appreciate your opinions, and anybody else that wants to drop
Good night,
by, do the
good
same.
night, Steph. And what's your
All
name?
right,
Tony Crow,
Tony
Knicks
Crow.
and Bruises. Your
Nicks
blackest
and
time.
Breezes. Appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, he brings up some good points, and this is what we've discussed already. I think Randall, it was the wrong battle. Now, I wasn't upset when he did it,
It was the
but you
post
better
game.
be able to deal with the pushback. And I think I don't know if it was that he wasn't able to deal with, or the fans and his family, that dynamic. I'm not sure
I
what it
mean
was.
that kind of came later, or at least the information of what was going on came out later. We don't know like when it started, and even the thumbs down thing, I didn't have a problem with
I
that
didn't have
per
a problem.
se. It was the unreleased post game in which he elaborated and expressed what he meant by the thumbs down. Because at that point, I felt like you had time to think about it. Like you didn't really have to double down, or you could have doubled down, but strategically, you could have
Right,
said this was to a specific fan or a
right,
specific group of fans. You know what I
right.
mean? But when you group type the whole fan base, you're not gonna get a lot of these guys back. You're not gonna win them back.
I don't think he's gonna. I think those that um like him, and those that don't, just don't. I just don't see um a middle ground with that. I mean, appreciate you, Shop House. I mean, with Tibbs, we've talked about this. My issue is out. If a guy was playing well, let him stay in. When Randall was imploding, or when Randall wasn't playing aggressive, hold him accountable. And put Obi in, let Obi rock, or put somebody else in, just to send that message that you're not going to do what you want to do
Mm-hmm.
um, on this team. But I got to be honest, and I'm gonna drop my video giving my full take on the season either
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow or Saturday, time permitting. I don't have, I don't. Every coach has their philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
and you could disagree with the philosophy, but he's been pretty consistent. He has his 10-man rotation. That's his rotation. Those are the people he trusts. That's who he's rocking with. Everybody's philosophy is different. You could disagree with it. I can't say I agree with every philosophy he has, but to get on him for being who he is, that's just who he is. And I think if the front office has a issue with it, fire him, bring
Mm-hmm.
in somebody else. But keep in mind that coach is going to also have his philosophy that we may or may not agree with. Every coach has flaws. We may bring it. How many years have we complained about coaches who defensively didn't know what they were doing? They didn't know what they were doing. So we've had coaches where you could say, well, offensively the offense was fine, but defensively this guy didn't know what he was doing. You're gonna find that with every
Yeah,
coach.
and we had coaches that were literally learning on the job as opposed to learning from the job. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I can honestly say I think Tibbs, even though he's stuck in his ways, I think he's made plenty of adjustments. Just in the time that he's been here, I've seen adjustments. The fact that, he's mentioning himself, but I've been saying it all year that IQ wasn't expected to be in the rotation last year. He
Right.
earned that spot. And you got to give the props to IQ in the way that he earned it, because you would have never guessed that him shooting 3-4 feet behind the 3 point line would have been something that Tibbs adjusted to and accepted. You know what I mean? And then later
Mhm.
on, even encouraged. Like
Right. Mhm.
it, but he earned that. And what do we say? Once you earn your way into Tibbs' heart, or his inner circle, which whatever you want to call it, it's hard to get out of it. But it's also hard, just as hard to get into it.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing I've learned about Tibbs is it's the trust thing. If he trusts you, you have a long lease, just like you're saying. If he doesn't trust you, your lease is very short. However, once you cross over, you know, you get that longer leash. And I think Obi may have crossed over with
I,
his play in these last 5 games. And I think that may force Tibbs next year to think about that small ball lineup if both of them are here.
And Queen, I'll take it even a step further, because I was just about to say that. But not only has his play kind of opened Tibbs' eye and brought him closer to that inner circle, but Randall's behavior, I'm not going to say his play, but his behavior has made it, in my opinion, is yet to have been seen. But I think if you even take Julius Randle sitting down the stretch as a sign that I think even that his behavior has made Tibbs say, you know what, I can hold him more accountable now, because I've given him every chance. You know what I mean? I've given him every opportunity. I didn't go. I didn't hold him accountable as tough as I should have, but now I can, because you give him a inch and he tries to take a mile. Now you take that inch away.
I think with Tibbs, I don't know. You got to show him you could play. Period. He don't want to see no little like you have to really convince him that you can play. And I think Obi convinced him, down the stretch. But I don't think Obi was that guy in the beginning of the season. I really think the coaching staff has done a great job with our young guys. You notice whenever they get in the game, they hardly make a lot of mistakes. Now, I'm sure to Tibbs, because he knows the ins and outs, they're out of place. But when I'm looking at them, everybody seems to know where they're supposed to be and what they're doing. And Obi said that they have a practice before the practice for the young guys where they go over the plays. And I think he said Tibbs runs this practice. I'm not sure. So that everybody knows where they're supposed to be. So that just tells me that they're really focusing on these young guys and really helping them develop. And if Tibbs doesn't make it, these guys, I feel like these young guys, no matter where they end up, whatever team they end up, coming in your first year or two under Tibbs, that foundation is going to do them well, no matter where they go. I think you muted.
I don't know if you guys covered Taj at all.
We didn't cover Taj.
But I did want to ask you a question about Taj's value to this team, because I really feel like it's undervalued and underrated. And then also ask you, do
Mhm.
you think do you think Rose still impacted the team even in his absence, and his lack of availability, and how do you feel about specifically moving on from him and trying to I obviously work with him in finding him a location, and maybe taking whatever we could get back for him, or do you think he's too valuable in us moving forward? Granted, I think even moving forward, I don't think he's retained after this year. But you may think otherwise. Maybe he retires and Nick. I don't know. But what are your thoughts on those two questions?
I think it depends. If we bring in a point guard, I think you can move on from him. Because I think if you got Rose, you got whoever you bring in starting, and then you got IQ as the backup, you can move on from Rose. If you decide you're going to start quickly, then I would keep Rose. Yeah, if you're not going to bring in another point guard and you're going to keep quickly, then yeah, I would um like to have Rose behind him because Rose is going to help him with his development in that role.
And how much do you think he's helped, even with his absence of being able to play? I noticed the young kids, they always seem to mention Rose. Um, all season long, even last year, but particularly this year. I mean, Deuce, quickly, Sims. It seems like all the young guys always mention Rose and Taj.
Listen, I think um I think they do help. I mean, they're good vets. They're good vets. Rose is a good vet. He knows he said it on numerous occasions. It doesn't even matter if he plays or not. When he was in Detroit, he didn't even want to start. He said, "I know what my role is at this point in my career." So he's a good vet. Taj is a good vet. The difference is Rose is an expensive vet if he's not playing, right? Taj is $5 million. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Rose is 14. That you could get that type of mentorship somewhere else for less. So if he's not going to play, I think we do have to move on. But I got to tell you, Rose and RJ, in my opinion, are the only guys you could count on this team game in and game out. And I don't even know if I could say that about Rose this year because he only played 25 games.
Hmm.
He only played 25 games, right?
Yeah,
But
availability.
right, it's the best ability. Yeah, 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 definitely. But what about you? Would you bring him back or would you look to trade him?
I think you made a great point, especially if they move quickly up to the starting lineup.
Hmm.
I think in that aspect, I would definitely uh, keep Rose
Hmm.
and hope he could stay healthy for a full season, playing
Hmm.
about 20 minutes a game maybe.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, but if we are bringing someone in,
Hmm.
I think I like what I saw from Quickly enough this year to at the very least give him that backup role at the point. I think if he's solidified at the point moving forward, even with what he has to learn still at that position,
Hmm.
I think it still opens up spots on the roster, space on the roster for people who
Hmm.
are already here. Um, Obviously, no more playing the two will open up a spot for Grimes to hit some minutes there. At Burks some minutes there. Obviously, he's not starting that point. Um, um, Cam to get some minutes there as well.
Right.
So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Mhm.
As far as Taj, I wish he would I wish he would stay and coach in some capacity.
Mhm.
But I can't take anything away from his minutes on the floor. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I don't care if he's not productive. I feel like he's still productive without numbers, without stat
Mhm.
numbers,
Mhm.
and and every now and again he'll give you them stat numbers too,
Right.
even if it's for a quarter. You know what I mean? But he's giving you effort the whole way, 100%. He looked like he gonna pass out there, but he's still going until he's getting pulled. So
Yeah.
it's messed up. So
Mhm.
it part of me values him more than Rose, and it's because of that availability thing. You know what I mean? like he's there when you need him to be there.
Right. I wanted to address this, and this is the same thing with Obi. What are we trying to do? What are we trying to do? Like, I'm very disappointed that the Knicks didn't make the playoffs. Right. I'm very disappointed that we were under 500. Right. What I want for the Knicks is to be a winning team, which is to finish over 500 every year and to get in the playoffs every year as we build in toward being contenders. Right. That didn't happen this year. Right. So people think the solution, because we lost with the vets, and by the way, I don't buy into this narrative of vets versus young people. It's just one team, the New York Knicks. Um, but people feel that we didn't make the playoffs. We didn't have a good season. The answer to that is on this roster. And what we need to do is just move some guys up and we'll make the playoffs. To me, I feel like if we didn't make the playoffs, it's because it was for a variety of reasons. But if you're going to make any changes because you want to make the playoffs, those players, in my opinion, are not on this team. So,
Mm.
for example, if you're going to trade Randall and you're not going to bring in a point guard and you're going to start Obi and you're going to start quickly, that's fine if you're okay going to the lottery. Okay. Because, in my opinion, sure, they can pop and they can explode and they can have a over the top season and we can get into the playoffs. But realistically, that team is not getting into the playoffs. They're not unseating any playing team. Brooklyn, Charlotte, Atlanta, Cleveland. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, it's how do we make this team better? And I don't think trading Randall, not bringing in a point guard, starting Obi and IQ makes this team better.
I I agree with part of what you're saying. Um, and then let me ask you this: are you specifically referring to trading Randall not necessarily making us better, or are you saying because
If you
do
trade
you think that?
Randall,
Let me ask you this: if you bring the same team back, obviously minus Kimber, are we better than this year? Are we play in contention, playoff contention?
we're in playing. If we bring the same team back and they're healthy, but there's two big ifs. Health is a big if, and Randall's mentality is a big if. You understand what I'm saying? If Randall mentality is different, and that's a big ask. And if we're healthy, we're playing contenders.
I don't
We
think it's
are.
a big ass though. I don't think it's a big ass.
You
You
don't
know
think it's a
why?
big ask for Randall?
No, no. I mean, I've been through therapy before. I don't know if he has, and I'm not saying he needs to, but one of the first things you learn is about reflection and taking responsibility. So there's no way on earth that I believe that he's delusional to the point where he can look back and reflect on this season and not take any fault, not take any blame.
But
You know
it's
what I mean?
I understand, but it's a skill to be able to gain that insight and in the moment choose differently. Because to me, it seems like he just gets so emotionally worked up. Sure, afterwards he's remorseful. Afterwards, he's like, wow, I should have did that different. Maybe, I don't know. But
And that's
in
the
the
thing.
moment,
I was gonna say we don't even see the remorsefulness. You know, that's what I'm saying. So I, I I can't see him not changing because again, it's behavior like that, and then you get a reputation, and then you're out of the league. It's as simple as that, and it has nothing to do with his talent or his skill. Like that's how bad it could be, and it's already being looked at from a bird's eye view because of it's New York, number one, and this media. also the fan media has increased probably to a level where it's never been before overall with the number of you know podcasters and YouTubers and just Twitter people, you know what I mean, like it's huge. I can't see him at the very least showing no reaction as opposed to a bad reaction. Like like making some type of adjustment. I there's no way he comes back and has the same attitude.
It's if but this is the thing. If he sometimes you can want to do better, but in the moment the
Mm-hmm.
emotion is so high you can't do better. That's what are we dealing with? You
Do you,
understand what I'm saying? We don't know.
he's looked worse than a Boogie Cousins at times this year.
Oh, yes, he has.
I don't has he looked like that the year prior? I would say
But the
no.
stakes wasn't that high. We was winning. You understand what I'm saying? And
So
even the
is
year
it just
before,
about the pressure?
I'm
Is
thinking,
that what it is?
I don't know for sure, but it's possible that it could be the pressure. It's possible it could be the disappointment that he came in with high expectations and he's not playing well and the team is not playing well. And he saw early on that this was a different team and that, our chances of going to the playoffs doesn't look that great. And I think it was too much for him. And the fans chanting
I got
OB and all of that stuff.
I gotta believe different from my guy Randall. You know what I mean?
Okay, all right.
Even though
Listen,
I'm down on him right now, you taking the fact of he's seen what he got a glimpse of what New York is like year one, right? By the end of year one, and he came back and worked on that game and got his game right. So even at the very least, if he just does that and gets his game right, you got to think everything falls right into place, right? No.
no, because I,
Mm.
I see his game and his mental part. Listen, if the team is winning, maybe because
Yeah,
maybe if
yeah.
the
Well,
team is
that's
maybe
what
if the
I'm
team is
assuming.
winning, maybe the fans aren't on him as much. Maybe he's not as frustrated. So maybe he will do better. But what if he comes back and we're still not a good team? You know what I mean? D- I see the emotional part as something that he needs help with.
Hmm.
Now, if he gets help with that, that's a different story. Jay Williams, I'm not talking about that he can't duplicate last year in terms of his on court game. I'm talking about his emotionality. That's what I'm talking about. Because that to me, I'm a big Randall supporter. I tweeted that I'm dying on the hill with Randall at the beginning of the season. You know what I mean? But that I'm big on. I got to be able to trust you. I'm like Tibbs. I got to be able to trust you game in and game out. And when your mentality is like that, how can you trust them?
So, what do you think? Do you think his Tibbs trust in Randall has faltered any?
Let me tell you something. I'm wondering. I'm not gonna say Tibbs is scared of Randall. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna go that far. But there's a reason he didn't hold him accountable. There's a reason when he imploded in them games, he didn't sit him down. There's a reason he didn't, talk to him or at least go, come on, or something. Now, it could be that Randall has powerful allies in that organization.
Mm.
He's close with Leon Rose, used to be his agent, and he's close to Dolan, from what I understand. So maybe Tibbs feels like, the power dynamic is in his favor, even though Rose also has Tibbs has a good relationship with Rose. There's some reason why he didn't hold him
See,
accountable.
I've always chalked it up to Tibbs' experience in Minnesota with Cat and how that turned out, where his accolades, his status as a coach didn't match up to Cat's potential as a superstar. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I think his coaching style, if you will, bumped heads with Cat, and in turn the organization had to make a decision: are we riding with the coach, or are we riding with the player? And I think he learned that this NBA, 90% of the time they're gonna ride with the player. So I think that might be why he hasn't held him accountable to the extent that we feel like he needed to, or he should have. And then even in the post game, you could tell very particular, very strategic in how and what he said about Randall all year long. You muted.
I mean, that's a good point. The experience he had with Cat, understanding that it's a player-driven league right now. If this is your best player on the team, you got to be careful how you deal with them because it could backfire. Okay, all right. I mean, that could be it. The other thing could be that he's um, Randall is a strong ally because Randall has spoken up for Tibbs on numerous occasions when Tibbs was under some heat and he would come to the I forgot, it was something really specific. I don't know if it was RJ's injury, but it was something very specific and Tibbs was getting a lot of heat. And Randall said, I'm rocking with Tibbs. Whatever his decision is, I'm rocking with Tibbs. So maybe when you have somebody that you know has your back, maybe you feel like you don't want to go after him, but if their relationship could survive that,
Mm-hmm.
they would have been like, had he sat Randall down, held him accountable, and that relationship survived that, they would have been bonded at the hip, and Randall would run through a wall for him.
I agree, but I don't. I also don't think it's too late for that. I mean, it should have happened earlier, absolutely.
Hmm.
But even going through this together, right? And even Tibbs has mentioned that throughout the time. We're going. This is a team thing. We're going through this together. It's not. You know what I mean? It's not just this guy's fault. It's not just that guy's fault. So I mean, maybe it seeps through. Maybe it sinks in.
Yeah.
I think at this point we gotta hope and pray for the best because there's no promise that any changes are gonna be made personnel wise. We don't,
Yeah. I mean, I think shout out to Sim. Nothing but Knicks. Excuse my dog again. I forgot to close that door. I chalked that up to trying to deal with Randall's personality. I'm hoping he addressed him in the locker room. This is the other thing. You seen how Randall pushed Kenny Payne's hand away. You see what he did. Tibbs probably don't want none of the smoke when he's in his emotional bag. And like Sim said, maybe he addresses him and talks to him afterwards. But I'm okay with moving on for Randall if we can get a starter. We need a starter, not just a rotation guy. Can we get a starter if we trade Randall?
I'd go even further, man. Like the way I feel like I'm coming out there. If I'm I think there were rumors of what the Knicks wanted in return, but I want either a recent All Star or a recent Most Improved. You don't have to have done both.
Nah, you're
Hey,
not gonna get that for Randall at
hey,
this point.
then I'm not doing it.
You're muted. You muted.
It could have been the year before Randall. You know what I mean? I don't know who that was. No more than 2 years before Randall. But All Star, former All Star, like it don't gotta be perennial. You know what I mean? But made it within the last 5 years. One of those two accolades. And back to the comment we were talking about earlier, but like you had mentioned last episode, you like a guy like Jeremy Grant. I would think that
He's
uh,
not a number one. He not Jeremy Grant is
he's
not
not
gonna be that
he's
type of guy that's
he's
going
not
to. He's
he
just gonna play his power forward position.
but that might be what we need. We might not need someone to replace Randall in role. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah,
It
absolutely. I agree.
like it may just be somebody who fits seamlessly. You know what I
Right.
mean? Where ball movement doesn't stop. Shot attempts is not questioned, whether like he might get 20, he might get 15, he might get
Hmm.
12, but it's not going to be a issue of I have to get 20. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I'm not saying Randall does that, because
Hmm.
we've seen him take 10 shots in the game,
Hmm.
9 shots in the game. But he might be a better fit for the team.
Right.
And I think a guy like that could get us to a perennial playoff team. And it's not, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily somebody filling in that number one spot. It's just because the fit is so good. You know what I mean? Unselfish, selfless in how he plays. Not out there looking to
Right.
get his. It's all coming within the offense. What Tibbs would say is he lets the game dictate
Right.
what he's gonna do.
Right. Right. I mean, Jason, shout out for rocking with us today. I don't think as an individual talent that I would agree with you that Julius is better than Jeremy Grant as an individual talent. But Grant might be a better fit for this team. You know, now I've been on record saying that if we construct this roster differently, if we bring in a point guard and we kind of reduce Randall's offensive role to just being a traditional power forward, no playmaking, none of that, just play the power forward role, he would be more efficient. But my question to you is, can you put the genie back in the bottle? He's so used to playing this type of role with the Knicks. Can you shrink his role as a playmaker and he be happy?
To be honest, it's gonna have to come from Randall himself, and I say that in the sense that he just has to take better shots. You know what I mean? It's really up to him. I think if you kind of force it on him and say, "Listen, we only want you to do this,"
Right,
I think that might hurt his ego, his pride, his
right,
feelings, his game. You know what I mean? But if he can figure it out,
right,
this is where I'm most effective. This has to be my bread and butter. I need to go to this move 7 out of 10 times a game. I can still facilitate, but it's gonna be a read off of me
correct,
in this
correct,
position. You know what I mean? But he has to take that, and he has to live with it. Maybe it's not a lesser role, but he has to be okay with it if it ends up being a lesser role.
right,
Sacrifice for the team. You know what I mean? But I don't know if a coach is going to preach that 100 times out of 100. It's up to the player to buy into that. You know what I mean?
it's up
So
to the player to buy into that. But I think if Tibbs would have held Julius accountable, we would be looking at a different Julius right now. Because yes, you have to change on your own, but when you know there's consequences for your behavior, it helps.
mhm.
It helps you change, right? When I know if I do this, I'm gonna sit down. When I do this, I'm not gonna play that fourth quarter. If I'm imploding and it looks like I'm not under control, the coach, and then afterwards, the coach will come to you and say, I had to sit you because you wasn't in the right frame of mind.
Sorry.
I wasn't. That's okay. I had to sit you. You wasn't in the right frame of mind. I wasn't sure if I can trust you out there, and I need you in your right frame of mind. That goes a long way.
I agree. I agree. My only question is, does it have to be something public? Because Simmons pointed out we don't really know what's going on in the locker room, and how
Right.
Tibbs is disciplining them, talking to
Right.
them, or anything. And it may be a thing where it has to be something public. It may have to, and when I say public, I don't mean like out loud to the press, but I mean on the court, in the view of the you know what I mean, the cameras, because that
Mhm.
may be the that you got to fix the problem as it occurs, when it occurs, as opposed to addressing it after it already happened. And not comparing it to a parent and a child, but I know that's one of the things that I've had to go through or I had to learn with my daughter. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like if I address something immediately, it's more likely that it becomes fixed than
Right.
if I wait till we get home from the store and say,
Right.
"Hey, when we was in the store, I didn't like when you did blah blah blah." You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
So
No, I get it. You could do it both ways. And it could be effective, afterwards as well. It's just that in a game, sometimes you can't even have that conversation, but at the same time, you can't allow it to keep going on, you know? So so I agree in that sense that, Tibbs does give Randall, IQ, Barrett long leashes. And I'm talking about Barrett before he started, playing well and had this breakout season. If he rock with you, he rock with you. So that has to be worked out. Otherwise, I don't really see a path forward for Randall if he comes back acting the same way. And I feel like we just wasting time in terms of our own trajectory as an organization moving on. If we got to deal with him for yet another season, you know.
and to his on his side for a little bit, he may be feeling the same way. You know what I mean? Like if he got to deal with the atmosphere or the booze or
Right.
you know what I mean the turmoil and tension. So I don't
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think if it improves, I don't think it lasts more than half a season. To be honest,
I think Randall should also be embarrassed.
I agree,
He
but
should be embarrassed.
that's part of why I feel like he has to change. There's no way he could come back with that same attitude and be thinking and saying publicly, "I want to be here." You know what I mean. At some point, everybody in life has to look in the mirror and
Hmm.
accept their flaws, what they did wrong, like acknowledge it, accept
Hmm.
it. Because if
Hmm.
you don't acknowledge it, it will never change.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
What other
Yeah.
topics we had? We this one
Oh
this one
yeah,
went
yeah. We
long.
went we went long. Well, we talked about 28. I want to talk about Burks. Do you bring him back in a bench role or do you move on? I mean, listen, that wing, you think about it. Grimes, do you want Grimes to be in the rotation? Somebody has to come out. If everybody is healthy, remember Grimes wasn't in the initial rotation. So if you want him in the rotation, somebody has to come out. If you want Cam Reddish in the rotation, somebody has to come out, you know? So
You want to lead? You want to lead? Well, I mean, I can go because I know exactly where I'm going. Um, and I'm a Burks guy too. I love Burks. I
Mhm,
actually I don't prefer him at the point guard, but I give him respect for what he's done for a whole season in that position. You know, where a lot of people just stuck on the fact that he's not a point guard. All right, but we don't make the decision of what you know what I mean, what role he's gonna play. So let's critique and kind of give him props for what he's done out of position. But that being said, I'm not advocating keeping him per se. I think we could get the most. He's probably the guy that we could get a first
I'm
round
not
pick
advocating
for.
keeping him per se.
Salute, right?
I think we could get the most.
I think you got it on in the back.
Probably the guy that
All right, it went away. Um, what was I saying? Yeah, I think we could get a first for him moving forward. I think he's the guy that probably should be moved. But I'm not. Again, this is probably going to be like a trade deadline move, not something before the season starts. And I think he's a valuable piece, though. We can't use Queen.
where teams might be a little more desperate for a scoring punch
Yeah,
going into the
yeah.
playoff. Okay. 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 Shout out Ron. How
What's
are you?
happening, y'all?
We good. We good. I just want to get a shout out real quick to D Neezy one for the super sticker. Appreciate you. Yeah. Any thoughts, Ron? We were talking about Burks. Do you keep him off the bench or do you move on from him if you can, keeping in mind the glut we have if we want minutes for Grimes? Because remember, both Grimes and Cam Reddish was not in the rotation. So if they're going to be in the rotation, that means they have to take the place of somebody. And I don't think Tibbs is going more than 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, first off, let me say thank you for having me.
Of
This is
course.
the crossover, so why not bring still Knicks fans
That's
into the
right. That's
crossover? You know
right.
what I mean? But yeah, I think I mean, you love what he's done for the team. Burks has been a great asset for us. We complain about how he's been used, but we do know that if he was used in his most comfortable setting, we would get more out of him consistently.
Right.
But Derrick Rose is coming back. You already seen Grimes step up, so you need to be able to make a way for him.
Yeah.
I think if I have a choice, this is what it comes down to me. To me, it's like Derrick Rose or Alec Burks. I'm going with Derrick Rose.
Even injury, even though he only played 25
Well, to
games.
me, you know what it does? Because honestly, there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying they're all correct, but there's a lot of people clamoring for the Knicks to move on from a lot of these vets, get rid of Burks and Derrick Rose. But my thing is, you get rid of Burks, that opens up the spot for Grimes. Grimes keeps that spot, and maybe he battles back and forth with Cam. I don't know how it will
Right.
work out.
Right.
But then you get Rose. Rose is here. So we've got the spot for him. If he's out there playing and he's healthy, you know he's going to contribute. But if Rose is not healthy, then that opens the door for you to move on from Rose. Because then you could say now the injuries have plagued him so much. We love you. We gave you another shot to be here. We want you here, but we got to move on from you. That's the only way I think you could do it, because Rose is
This
like
is his second year anyway, right? Because I think that next year is a team option or player.
Right. And we did 3 years with him, right? 3 years.
Yeah. The third year's team.
Right. So I mean, and actually, so does that mean he becomes an expiring contract because it's a team option?
Yeah.
After next season.
Oh, it has to be.
He has a 3-1 or 2-1. I think he has a 2-1.
Last year he was a free agent. We signed him for 2-1. This season coming up will be his second year in a new contract.
All right.
But he would be expiring though.
Yeah. After the season, we have the option to bring him back or not.
Right. So, no, but that's
at
good.
the trade deadline, though, he's expiring.
Yeah.
That means it's favorable for a team because they can pick him up to help them with their playoff run or whatever. And if they don't want to keep him, they can let him go.
Well, I'm hoping he can help us in our playoff run.
No, I hear you. I'm with it. I'm just saying, just in case, because that little caveat, if he gets hurt again and he's out for an extended period of time, then again, it's a bad situation, because if it does get hurt, how do you move him? Who wants him?
Hey, I got a question for you, Queen, because when I brought up the Westbrook trade, right, and you said it kind of stunts the development because he's not a long-term option.
Not individual development.
No, because he's not going to be here long-term. You know what I mean? It's like a wasted year in the sense that he's here.
In the sense of having a core that's going to grow together, because he's such a dynamic player that he's not going to be there. Now you have to bring somebody else into that role, and now the chemistry has to kind of start over.
Because my thinking is, when I brought that up, it was really getting rid of the long-term contracts in Randall and Fournier.
I agree. If we're not talking about anything else but getting off of contracts, then
because the only difference in moving forward now is everybody else is expiring anyway. You know what I mean? Like, these guys aren't necessarily part of the long-term future. Burks, Rose, Noel, they're all going to be gone potentially after this season coming up. So at this point, not only would they be coming off the books, we would free ourselves of the money for Randall and Fournier. Now, all of our youth is still, you know what I mean? That's the nucleus. And we really would be trying to fill in the right vets to surround them with.
This is my issue here. And I think this just goes to the direction of the team. And I get it. Each of us have different thoughts on the direction of the team. I'm tired of the Knicks losing. I'm just tired of going to the lottery. Other than last year, we've been going to the lottery every year since 2013.
If we even had a pick, right?
Right. I want the Knicks to put together a team that's getting better. That's why we brought Leon Rose here. Because we got tired of going to the lottery. We brought them here, excuse me. We brought them here to put a team together that's going to make us a winning team. That means over 500 every year in the playoffs every year till we can become a championship contender, right? So, we didn't make the playoffs this year. What are we going to do to get better? Selling off all of our vets and going with this young core, now we're talking about another 2 years or 3 years or whatever. And for me personally, I'm tired of the lottery. I'm just tired of unless these kids pop in such a major way, because anything is possible. We're talking about another 2 years in the lottery. We get rid of every vet. So I'm
Well,
for getting rid of the vets, but let's bring in some players that can play.
yeah.
If they can't play, let's bring in people who can play and make us better.
Even, and I'm not pushing the scenario because it doesn't have to be Westbrook, but even in that scenario, I think the one vet would obviously be Westbrook, right? Not saying that's a good or bad thing. Taj would still be on as a vet who we know is a great vet in the sense that he's a vet that's a plug and play. He's gonna be ready when it's time to play, and he don't got no problem in sitting if these young guys are popping like you would say or popped. But I think we would still need to bring in another vet at some position. I don't want to narrow it down or call out an additional person that I have in mind, but I think we would still have space and the opportunity to bring in another vet. But now we could be strategic in what we need to kind of fill in the gap for this particular roster. But at the same time, I think RJ would still be the go-to guy moving forward. I think a spot would be opened up for Obi. Um, Obviously Fournier would be gone, so now we have a spot for Grimes or Cam, whomever decides, whoever beats the other in that in that rotation. But I think it just opens up everything for the young guys, minus Deuce, obviously. But it opens up a spot to see if they're gonna pop. But moving forward, that's the core. It doesn't take anything away from their growth in the sense that
But that's the point I'm making. I don't. Why does that have to be to me? Other than R.J. Barrett, anybody else is expendable on this team to make this team improve. That's it.
I agree
R.J.
with that
Barrett
too.
has shown that he's now. Don't get me wrong. IQ could pop later on. Obi, and by pop I mean somebody you can count on game in and game out. And it's going to take some time for that to happen. And for those who want to rock out with them until it happens, I have no problem with that. I mean, I have no problem with your opinion on that. But I'm tired of going to the lottery. I'm just tired of going to the lottery. And I don't see Westbrook as something that's sustainable.
Well,
Meaning that you may pop and get into the lottery because he returns to MVP form and RJ continues to pop. And so you might get there, but that's not sustainable because of his age.
I agree that he is not a long term part of the process, but everybody else is the process. You know what I mean? Is the and again, I feel like honestly, I feel like we should be better than we were this year. I think we should be at the very least in the play in this year. But looking at this season, it made me realize that you know what? It's not even that wasn't guaranteed. If you asked me at the beginning of the year, I would have guaranteed we are at least a play-in team. I
We
would
all
have put
said
money. I would have
we
put
all
money on it.
and we could have been had we been injured and not shot
So
40%.
so what I'm saying is, what's the difference?
What do you mean?
The
What's the
diff
difference?
the, what's because I think, again, I'm not advocating for it, but bringing in a Westbrook and running him with our young guys that we have, and who they shown they are, not even if they pop, I think we could be better than we were this year. It
With
could go.
Westbrook and these young guys,
It could
I
go
don't.
either
I
way.
disagree, but I hear you.
The only
I
reason
disagree.
I say that is because they all play his style of game. You know what I mean? It's going to be more like what Tim said about playing Randall and Obi together. We're banking on outscoring teams more than likely, but at the same time, not necessarily, because Tibbs is going to emphasize defense. Hopefully we will still have Mitch, who's an anchor in some sense defensively. He's got to improve. Now, granted, I'm not banking on these guys to be who they're going to be at their peak, but I think they could continue to grow as we've seen them grow.
Okay, that doesn't make
And
you a playoff team, though. Continuing
no,
to
but it
grow.
doesn't make us a lottery team either.
Well,
I'm
it's
saying
only one or the other. You in the like,
but
oh,
it
you.
could. My point is, it could go either way. Just as we've seen, it could go either way with the team that we had this year. That's my point.
It can always go either way, but on paper, what are your chances at the beginning of the season? And from that, it can go either way. Westbrook, Barrett, Grind. I mean, Grind. I don't see that as I don't see that team unseating Charlotte, Cleveland, Atlanta, Brooklyn, which was the 4 play-in teams, unless they play out of their minds. But Ron,
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, it's Westbrook is a tough one, man. It's a tough one to sell. For we've seen a comedy of stuff going on in LA with him, but I also think that he was in a situation that wasn't conducive to him playing good basketball. That that whole thing that Zabron got going on over there is wild, and if you got to fit into what he's got going on, and if you don't, it can be tough on you. And I think he struggled a lot with his shot and some of his decision making. LeBron wasn't going for it, and then it piles on. It compiles with the pressure and everything. If you're saying that we could bring Westbrook here and that allows us to send a bunch of contracts like Noel and Burks and whoever else, we are able to get them off the team. We bring him back because the money would have to match, and I see that. I don't think Westbrook. Does he make us that much better? No, probably not. But I don't think he hurts us either. I think bringing him off the bench, running up and down the court with
you're not coming off the bench. I can tell you that.
No. But that's the only way I'm working with Westbrook.
Okay.
You make your 44 million. You coming off the bench with Obi and whoever else, and you're gonna be the run and gun team of the second unit. You're not coming in the
on the
first unit.
first unit though? Because Randall is gone.
In my perspective, in my trade, it was Randall and Fournier, the two guys that's contracts go.
Okay,
all right. Go past all these.
Sorry, I missed it. I didn't hear the first part.
So Obi would start, who loves to run along with Westbrook. RJ is a downhill player. I think that fits right in with Westbrook. Granted, I'm not guaranteeing playoffs at all. Like I'm just saying there's a chance we can make it, as opposed to this current year that's just ended, where I would have guaranteed it, and I'm sitting here sick right now because I still don't understand.
I still think last year's team, if healthy, would have had a better chance than the team you're talking about with.
Maybe, I think that this year's team would have been better had Tibbs used guys differently in certain situations. Not all the time. Maybe some guys weren't ready, but there were situations where he could have done things a little differently. That's an interesting question there.
That's what I was saying. That he's so dominant that when he leaves, it's like a hole, it's like a vacuum. And now,
but that's what plays into my thing. Like now I understand what you're saying, Tony. I'm sorry I didn't hear it earlier. What your proposal was, but even with that, I still wouldn't want Westbrook in the starting lineup. If anything, what I would sell to Westbrook is, okay, Randall's gone. We know that. We've got a lineup of, just say we keep Mitch, whatever. We got a lineup of Mitch.
Oh, that's not.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a lineup of Mitch, Obi, RJ, let's say Cam and IQ, for example. That allows whoever you got coming off with the second unit, a shooter in Grimes. If Fournier is still here, I don't know. Would Fournier be gone?
Fournier will be gone.
Okay, good. All right. So we've got Grimes. Whoever else is on this team that can shoot, because you want guys on the perimeter who can shoot, because Westbrook can't shoot. But having Westbrook be the second unit guy, like the offense and everything flows through Westbrook. So he's the man of the second unit. Of course, there'll be times where he plays.
I'm sorry, at point guard in this first unit?
I'm sorry?
Who's starting at point guard in the first unit?
Oh, Quickly.
Oh. That's what I'm saying. It's a lottery team. That's all I'm saying. If we're okay going back to the lottery, don't bring in a point guard, get rid of Randall, and go back to the lottery. But I want us to be better.
Let me just send real quick, and because he said the question is how long would Westbrook be here? I think and to me that totally depends on Westbrook, because now we're in a position like you said, Steph, if he's super dominant, if he returns to MVP form, right, and we're winning, or we're not winning the championship, but we're in playoff contention. Number one, I don't think he's gonna be out there trying to get another $47 million a year contract. I think he knows his contract going forward is lower. So, and again, hopefully it costs less than the Chris Paul 3-year $100 million. But I think if he's proven that he's worth it, you can give him a 3-year $85 million, because
but why,
chances
though?
Because it popped, because we got to the playoffs, because the chemistry was great. That's why
the timeline is not there. The timeline is not there. He's 30-something years old. Okay, he gets us to the playoffs. I'm still not signing him for 3 years, 85. He better take me all the way to the championship.
I understand that.
To the championship.
And that's what Chris Paul did to earn the contract that he got. My point is, you're not giving him this contract ahead of time and hoping that he gets us there. You're giving it to him because he got us there. So you get to evaluate it before you extend him.
Westbrook is not the type of player I would want on the Knicks long term. And I'm a Westbrook fan. I just don't see Westbrook and RJ meshing. I just don't.
I have concerns. I definitely have concerns. But I feel like he's more liable to have a bounce back year than someone else.
I agree with that.
He's proven it for way longer. Even in his bad year, again, I know y'all hate when I do the numbers thing, but since 17-7-7.
But how did it impact winning? When he was in Washington, he broke the triple double record. They just got into the play-in.
This year didn't affect winning. With Washington, it did though. That team wasn't a playoff team without him anyway. So he affected the winning. He got them into the play-in, and not for nothing. Throughout his career, whether he had superstars with him, all-stars with him, Hall of Fame guys with him, or just some young guys that played hard, he got their team to the playoffs. So again, I'm not advocating for it.
You're not advocating for it.
I also feel
an hour on it though.
I also feel like Westbrook has been devalued and undervalued, and I think it's unfair to him.
Well, but that's a separate question because I agree with that. But that doesn't mean I want him on my team. I agree with that. I think he is undervalued. I think, people say he's not a winner. I think all of that I do not agree with. But I just don't think it's the right time to have. If we're just doing it as a salary dump to get off of salaries, then that's fine. That's fine. If we're just doing it to dump salaries.
Here's a question. Do you ever think that maybe Westbrook, I'm not saying this is the case. I don't know. He's still a fairly young-ish for an NBA player as far as they're, maybe Westbrook is coming to the end. You know what I mean? Maybe he's getting a little washed up early because of the way he's played so many years. He's taken,
he's gonna be 34.
It's 100% possible.
Yeah.
especially being a athletic guy like that. So that's a chance. But again, this is why I'm not saying you resign him, but if he puts you in a position where you got to, like he brings you to the finals, Eastern Conference Finals, I think then you can consider it. But that's not something you do ahead of time. You know what I mean? You only do that based off of the evaluation of this 1 year. And on the flip side, maybe there's a chance you could flip them. You do it before the season. There's a chance you could flip them again in the at the deadline, and maybe get another asset in return.
All right.
Ke-
Well, before you
Kerry
move
Cox,
on,
I'm with you with John Wall. I think he would be a better fit. I don't know if Houston would want veteran players, but I would definitely take John Wall. Injury history and all over Westbrook because I think it's a fit and it's just a 1 year
that
contract.
makes sense. I mean, I just want
I
before
agree
you
with
move
both.
on, I wanted to ask you guys. So Steph and well, really, Tony, this is your thing. Really, would he be your plan A?
Oh, the only way I would do this is if they're dead set on moving Randall and getting something in return. You know what I mean? Like if they feel like we can't start the season with Randall on his team. That's the only way I'm doing this type of move, and including Randall. You know what I mean? Like because there's ways you can maneuver this trade and keep Randall, and I'm not opposed to that either. But I only do this with Randall if they're trying to, because I feel like you're not going to get equal value for him anyway. So the best, if you're not going to get the equal value for him, the best thing you could do is get an asset in some type of draft compensation, and get from under that long contract, and have that money available.
Right. I understand that. I'm just thinking like the Westbrook thing to me shouldn't be if the Knicks are going into this offseason making some changes and possibly moving on from Randall. I would think Westbrook wouldn't be the plan A. Like you try to go out there and get somebody else first, a plan A, maybe a plan B even. Westbrook should probably be like a C plan. You know what I mean? You gotta like exhaust your options. The Knicks,
I agree, but I would
yeah,
do
okay.
I would do that. I would do that before trading Randall for a Brunson.
Right.
You,
Or
you know what I mean?
even
I
Like,
wouldn't
trading
trade
Randall
him at
for
all. I
yeah,
think
I
if
wouldn't want
Westbrook
to
is
do
on the
it.
table, let's just keep Randall for another season and
Yeah,
see
but
what we could get. See if he redeem himself. See what we could do the next off season.
right. That I understand. I mean, because yeah, that's a tough one. But I hear you. I see where where you're going with it, Tony.
and I don't mind Wall either. Like especially because it's the same as our contract. So it's not about the value of the player per se in this position. It's more about opening up the future assets, money wise, a year early, and or a couple years early if you move in Randall and Fournier. So now you have, you know what I mean, you have money to sign two max again with all these youth. Like
Listen. We don't do. I have very little confidence in this front office when it comes to free agency. We had a lot of money to at least sign one max free agent this summer. You know, I'm just not confident
who
in
would
their
you
company.
who would you have wanted us to max out this year?
I'm not sure.
Because I
Maybe
don't. Go
maybe
ahead.
Ball. Maybe pay for Ball. I mean, he's one of them guys that he's not gonna blow you away with stats like his brother, but he impacts winning. I believe.
Yeah, I wasn't mad with what they did. Not like I don't think. Again, I said we have enough for two max. That don't mean that I'm saying go get two max guys. I'm saying if it's out there, you have the opportunity to do it. I like what they did. I like the Fournier contract. To be honest, you know what I mean.
Well, I mean,
I don't think they overpaid for him. I think it's
that's the
movable.
guy
You know
right
what I
there.
mean.
That's the guy
I
they
That's
think
should
the
have
only
got.
guy that I would have wanted them to max out because not only is he a player, but he's a bucket, and Knicks need a bucket. That's he's the guy who's proven in pressurized situations that he can get you that bucket.
Yeah. Michael Sharon, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if our team that if Randall didn't have his emotional antics and we had stayed healthy, it still would have been a dogfight to get into that play-in. Just seeing how the season has unfolded and seeing those teams that's in there now, it would have been a dog. We would have been in the fight though, but
Yeah,
it would have been a dog fight.
it sucks because I don't think we match up well against Charlotte or
Atlanta,
Atlanta per se. Maybe a little better against Atlanta
we
because
won. We beat
because
them this year
yeah, I
3-1, I
mean
think.
we beat them all games before the playoffs last year too.
Listen, Sam, salute. Man, Westbrook had trouble with LA fans, and that's where he's from. What's about to happen in New York?
The difference is he ain't give the thumbs down. You know what I
I don't
mean?
think it's that. If you don't play well, you turn the ball over, you're not winning, you're taking bad shots, the fans are going to get on you. He's not a very efficient player. Now, he's Randall 2.0 with effort, though. With effort and intensity, you don't have to question that about him.
I still don't feel like he mishandled anything with the fans. You know what I mean? Like when he's gone at fans, I think he's had legitimate reasons to go at them, and it's like I wouldn't compare him to Randall. Will he get booed? Probably. He can handle it, is what I'm saying. He can handle it. Like whether it's LA
Depending on
or
how
New
well
York,
he ain't handling it that well in LA.
I
Well,
don't think
I
he
don't
handled
know.
it bad at
But
all.
you think you see what they doing to Julius? Imagine what they're gonna do to Westbrook if he come here shooting bricks off the top of the backboard.
I think it'll be the same. Is what I'm saying.
You're right. You're right. But at least maybe he felt because it was his hometown. You know what I mean? He knows he's from there. Maybe he could deal with those are his fans. He loves his fans. But being somewhere else in New York, like that allegiance that it might not be there.
Right.
And that's my problem, Sim.
Right.
At some point, you got to take a risk. You got to swing for the fence.
But I understand that Steph, you are done with them being mediocre and not being able to compete and contend. I'm on the other side. I'm still very patient about it, and I'm okay with watching the young guys. I know it's not sexy, but my whole thing is, at the least, I would want this team to start moving away from inefficient basketball. And I think the more
Well, that's
inefficient
RJ
players,
too.
I know it's tough. But I
That's
think
RJ too.
And Westbrook and
the more
Randall.
guys
And Randall.
the more
Be
guys you
careful
can get
now.
off the team, the better. Because your star right now is inefficient, and I'm not talking about Randall. I know he has his inefficiency, but I'm thinking of RJ. RJ's inefficient, and RJ can learn to get better. But I don't think you can have too many inefficient stars on your team going forward if you want to compete and be a consistent basketball team that has winning principles. So I would get rid of Randall, and in that case, I wouldn't want Westbrook here. I just want guys who play smart basketball and can get me buckets. And okay, you can be a little aggressive, make mistakes, but just I need to see your box score be more efficient on a given night than rather than what I'm used to seeing.
Well, this is what I want. Trade off some of these young players, some of them, not all of them, because it's just like the stocks. Some of them may mature and hit, and some of them may depreciate in value. And we got a lot of them. We got a lot of them. For young vets, when I say, I don't even want to use the word vet because vet is so triggering. Young players who's been in the league 3, 4, 5 years already. They're not old, but they've produced in the league in that short time. So you know what you're going to get. You know what their floor is, even if they haven't hit their ceiling. It doesn't have to be Donovan Mitchell, but a player like that's still young. You know what his floor is. Brandon Ingram, he's young. You know what his floor is. Maybe he hits the ceiling, maybe not, but you know what his floor is. We have so many players that we don't know where their floor is. And that's not inefficiency, I guess, but that's too up and down. One day you see they ceiling, the next day they in the basement. I can't. I can't.
But that's what we're gonna get with young guys.
I understand, but we got so many of them, is what I'm saying. Trade
But
them for people that's just 2 years older, who've been in the league maybe 2 or 3 years more. That's it.
Steph, maybe we got something good that we just need to cultivate more
Yeah,
and let
But
go
that's the
patient.
because
point I'm trying to make.
because
It can go that way, but it can go sideways.
it can. But that's
Right.
why I think what you do is you go into the season saying there's RJ, fine, put him to the side. You got two guys, and I'm surprised I'm even saying this, but you got two guys that you could say, you know what, these might be keepers, and that's Obi and Quickly. I like Grimes, I like Deuce, but I can't say that Deuce and Grimes are Obi and Quickly. They're not.
But
So
this is the difference, though. I like Grimes better. And I tell
because
you
of his
why.
defense.
No. Because you already know what his floor is. You know, if you don't get anything else, this guy is a 3-and-D player for the rest of his career if you don't get nothing else. Obi, we don't know who Obi is going to be. Quickly, we don't know who they have high ceilings
Mm-hmm.
and they may reach them, but their floor, what's their floor? You know, right now, Quickly's floor is a little inconsistent in his decision making. Defense has gotten better. Shot selection, not, you understand? That's the floor. Obi's floor is somebody has to get him involved. Will he ever become somebody that can create his own shot? If you're not playing fast and you don't have a good point guard, are you going to get the most out of Obi? You understand what I'm trying to say? That floor is a little shaky, but the ceiling, if they hit it,
I'll be right back. I gotta get my door.
is
Gotcha.
is huge. So that's it. Just depends on the type of players you like. I like the ceiling, the low floor guys, high floor guys. I'm sorry, I know what I'm gonna.
Right. But
I know what I'm gonna get.
I just think that, one good thing that we have noticed with these young guys is that confidence means everything to them. If you believe in them, they believe in themselves, you get the best out of them. Even when they make mistakes, they're able to recover quickly, no pun intended. When things when they have that freedom to go out there and just play basketball. I thought one of the biggest things, which was it's small, it's a small test for me, but it was a barometer for me. I looked at it when RJ got hurt and went out of that game. My whole thing was, who's out there? How are they going to win this game? What are they going to do? And those guys stepped up and they played basketball and they won the game convincingly.
Oh, listen, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Quickly will never get into the Hall of Fame. I'm not saying that Obi will never be an all NBA player. I'm not going to ever say what a player won't be. You know what I mean? They very well could be. But if you have an opportunity to get a Donovan Mitchell where you
Oh.
know who he is,
Yeah.
if you get an opportunity to get a player that's still young and you know who that player is, and already they're better than the players we have, I think we gotta that's a move I would make. That's a move out. That's a move I would make. But no, I'm not gonna just trade them for a 35-year-old player because I want to get into the playoffs. No, I'm not. I'm not doing that. I'm not trading them even for Dame. I've been on record for this even last year because I want to get into the playoffs. No, I want something sustainable as well. And I just want the Knicks to be better sooner than later.
I understand that. I'm with you on that. My whole thing is, personally, like I said, I'm more patient and I'm willing to wait. But if you got a chance to get a Donovan Mitchell, a chance to get, I know this is a little iffy. You're still not sold on Zion. If his health and his weight is
If he's healthy,
if he's healthy,
that's a different story.
Yeah, like if you got a chance to get a Donovan Mitchell, a Zion, a DeJounte Murray, any of these guys that are game changers, transitional type stars,
and they're still young.
I'm ready for that.
So then we're on the same page then. But if we can't, then we rock with what we have.
That's what I'm saying, because I don't want to go the other way. And honestly, I don't really want to go get a Westbrook. I don't want to get a Jeremy Grant. Like, those are the type of guys.
Jeremy Grant is not that old, though.
Yeah, but he's not that good. That's the thing. Like, it's not about him being that old. He's still a young player.
We're talking about in place of Randall. I would rather have Jeremy Grant than Randall because of Randall's
maybe he's a better team player. Yeah, and
He's a
maybe he's a better team player.
That's what I
But
mean.
my
He's
whole
gonna
thing
fit
is,
better.
you know what I always look at, Steph? I look at these guys and I look at their situation and I look at how dominant are they in these situations when they are the 1A or the 1B. And Jeremy Grant to me is not dominant. I look at like you know, Orlando with Mo Bamba. And to me,
Right.
Mo Bamba's not dominant in Orlando when there's nobody else. Like you got the Wagner brothers that have come in and basically have taken over the spotlight over there. And you're Mo Bamba. You should be the one doing it. You could do everything on the court. Mo Bamba should be the man out there averaging 20 and 10 every night. And I don't see that. So that's why I question guys like that.
But he wouldn't be that wouldn't be Jeremy's role though, to come here and be a number one guy. And I only said if we're moving on from Randall.
Right. Right. No, I got you.
If we're moving on from Randall, this is somebody that's gonna come and just play the power forward position and is going to defend, and what have you. But yeah, I hear you. Yeah. I just want us to improve.
I hear
I
you.
just
I mean,
want us
it's
to
tough. It's tough to watch the Knicks struggle and be
year after year.
yeah. But I still think that you know what we've seen worse, Steph. The Knicks have been
Oh,
worse than
no doubt
this.
about it. No doubt about it. That's part of the being tired.
Right.
Because I've seen because I've seen it. You know what I mean? And I think it would be, to me, I know you would be excited, but to me it would be a punch in the stomach if we traded Randall and didn't bring in a starter, didn't get a point guard, and we're rolling into next season with IQ at the 1 and OB at the 4. Like
Okay, but now would you be mad if we did trade Randall, right, and got a Donovan Mitchell, who's not necessarily
no, I would not be disappointed.
No, but hold on. There's more to it.
Mhm.
Would you be mad if we got a Donovan Mitchell who's not like everybody's prototypical point guard? He can still, he's not bad. He's still he facilitates a little bit,
Right.
but he would be like the off guard and quickly was the point guard. Would you be okay with that?
Donovan Mitchell, IQ. I'm a big IQ fan, but IQ is just so. That's a really small lineup. IQ, Donovan Mitchell, and I wouldn't be mad at that.
But
I
it's
wouldn't be
not
mad at
not like you may, as far as height wise they have some issues with regards to defense, but offensively and like as far as rebounding and stuff, they both can rebound pretty good at their positions. Well, IQ definitely is, surprisingly. He's got a lot of long reach. So he's able to do a good job at that. It might not be as bad as it sounds. It's a possibility.
Yeah. I mean,
And I think IQ is better defensively at the point than at the 2.
he's better where at the 2.
He's better defensively at the point guard than at the 2 guard. He becomes his size becomes an advantage instead of a liability.
That's interesting. And I saw a comparison. It was kind of weird because I thought it definitely it's very premature. I saw a comparison between the way IQ plays and the way Trae Young plays. Not current Trae Young first year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very similar in style. We know, I mean, that type of guard that's the floater and the 3-point shot type of guard. But it is interesting that they do play very, similarly in his current role now and Trae's first year. I mean, I've already said a lot of negative stuff about IQ in the past, but I do say I got to give the kid credit. He is improving. So who knows? And then if you surround them with better players, you might see even more from him.
Yeah, I see them at this point in their career as rotation players on a playoff team. I don't see them as starters on a playoff team right now at this moment, But can they grow into that? Absolutely, they can. Absolutely, they can. Yeah, no doubt about it. I don't think. Oh, I was about to. That's good. And let me ask you. Let me ask you this. Because my answer has changed. My answer has changed. Would you do that?
The what was just up
Would you
there?
put RJ? Would you put RJ in a trade for Donovan Mitchell?
I would. I would.
I mean,
Even though RJ is not a finished product, I don't think he becomes the dynamic scorer that Mitchell is currently. And I don't think Mitchell is done growing either as a player. So I do it. I wouldn't want to. I'd rather pair them, but I do it.
Who's going to pass the rock? Yeah, we would need a point guard, Sim. Um, I'm going to say yes, and my answer was no before. But what changed my mind is not even the scoring, because Barrett could grow into the scoring and what have you. We need a closer, and Donovan Mitchell can close at the end of a game. And those 5 minutes, when you're within 5 points or whatever that metric is, he can close. And I'm not sure RJ might be able to do it, but I'd rather take the sure thing, especially if he's young. And Donovan Mitchell is young. So if it came to that, I would like to pair them, Tony, like you said. That would be my first choice. But that wouldn't be a sticking point. But that would be hard. It wouldn't be an easy choice to make.
the only thing that worked.
I was just gonna say, did I answer too fast?
The only thing that worries me is the fact that, listen, if we're gonna be all the way real here, I got concerns about Donovan Mitchell too. I think he's a transitional player. He's got great talent, great skills, but his team hasn't gone anywhere, and he's got a pretty good mix over there. It's not as good this year as it probably was before.
They've gone further than us, though. Like, he has playoff experience, so he hasn't been able to get his team over the top. The front office would have to give him some players, but he has playoff experience, though.
Agreed. I just don't know if who knows if listen, we've seen a lot of good players out there. Charles Barkley's, the Clyde Drexler until he went to Houston. Like, there's guys there's guys who've been great that can never win.
Right.
But that's not on them, though. That's on their team. I'm not going to blame Barkley for having to play against Michael Jordan.
Right.
Yes.
If RJ Barrett had the playoff performance last year that we saw Donovan give going back and forth with Denver, there's no way anybody would be saying any bad thing. They would not be blaming him. They wouldn't say, hey, we couldn't get past this team. We only got into the second round, first round. If RJ played like that and we lost and we got swept, there would be no knock on RJ right now.
Well, you're right at that moment. But you know what? It's a matter of time. As Sim said before, on the show that, right now it's Julius. Next year, if Julius ain't here, it's going to be somebody else. It could be RJ. If we get to the playoffs next year, turn it around. Say we bring in, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Whatever. The team is just balling out. We get to the playoffs. We make it past the first round. We get knocked out in the second round. Next year comes, for whatever reason, same team, balling out, make it through the first round, get knocked out in the second round. Everybody, this team, they can't finish. They don't know how to take us over the edge. You know what I mean? It's all about steps. We're just not at that step yet. But I'm with you. It's better to get there than to not even be in the conversation. So, all right.
Oh, no, yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And this guy is dynamic, in a good way. And I'm not for all these athletic people that's just putting up shots and dunking and it's looking pretty and you lose.
Right. And he's a Met fan. I mean, that alone says he's got to be here. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Anything else before we get out of here? Tony, you're okay.
Yeah, no, I just want to shout out the chat. Appreciate you guys as always. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, continue to join us. We got a lot of content. The season's over, but the off season is a whole new season for us. So
Yes. And I'm going live tomorrow on my channel, Dope Soul Sports Talk, to talk about the Knicks and obviously to talk about the Knicks. But I'm gonna drop my video hopefully tomorrow morning, giving you my full take on the Knicks season, and then I hope to go live tomorrow night after the NBA report.
Sounds good.
Yep. All right.
appreciate you, Ron.
Thanks for having me.
Howdy.